I looked at myself in the shiny elevator walls and adjusted the blazer I bought on sale for $90 at Nordstrom's. It didn't fit perfectly, but it would do. In just a few minutes, I would be sitting through another long family dinner. I already knew what to expect. My brothers and sisters would brag about all the great things they were doing, and I would sit there, smiling and nodding, pretending not to care. They had no idea what I was really working on. The elevator made a soft ding, and the doors opened to the rooftop lounge of the Chesby Club. It was one of the most exclusive restaurants in Pittsburgh. Only rich and important people could get in. And of course, there they were, my family, the Douglas. Everyone in the city knew our name. The Douglas were famous for being rich from real estate and for acting like money made them better than everyone else. "Well, look who finally showed up," my older sister Natalie said, loud enough for everyone to hear. She smiled as she brushed off some invisible dust from her expensive blazer. "Had to squeeze us in between shifts at that tiny office you work at?" I walked over and sat down in the only empty chair, next to my dad. He glanced at my old shoes and frowned, but I ignored it. "Sorry, I had a late day," I said. "Had to finish a few things at work." "You're still at that admin job, right?" my younger brother Liam asked with a grin. He played with his fancy watch while he spoke. "You know, typing stuff, filing papers, that kind of thing?" "Something like that," I said without much emotion. The truth was, I wasn't just doing some small-time job. I was the CEO of Halcyon Ventures, a growing company with some major wins. But I didn't tell them that. Not yet. My father gave a deep sigh, like he had been waiting to say it all day. "Ruth, you're 37 years old. When are you going to stop wasting your talent? Natalie is running our Maryland expansion. Liam just got a $15 million listing. And I'm keeping the lights on," I said, smiling politely. Natalie's face lit up. "You're going to love tomorrow's news," she said. "Douglas Properties is teaming up with Bell Capital. Their CEO is flying in to sign the deal. $45 million. Can you believe it?" I took a slow sip of my sparkling water. I could feel the corners of my mouth trying not to twitch. Bell Capital. My company. The one I had been working with for months to make this deal happen. Liam leaned in. "They're sending someone named, what was it? Ruth Kearney? Never heard of her." "Probably someone who got in through family connections," Natalie added with a smirk. I didn't say anything. I just smiled, knowing tomorrow would be very different. I looked each of them in the eye and spoke calmly. "You'll meet her tomorrow." They laughed and clinked their glasses together, talking about family, legacy, and big plans. None of them had a clue. While they chatted, I was already thinking about the meeting scheduled for the next day. That was the day they would sit across from me, smiling, asking for my signature to seal the deal. They always called me the black sheep of the family. They still do. But after tomorrow, they'll have a new name for me. They'll call me the boss. Over the years, I saw chances they never noticed. They were too comfortable, too used to getting everything handed to them. One of those chances came when I worked for a small tech company called Orion Data Systems. They had some amazing artificial intelligence tools that could change the world. But their money problems were serious. The company was falling apart. When Orion was close to shutting down, I used the little savings I had, along with what I knew about their financial mess, to buy most of the company. It cost me almost nothing. The original founders were great at building technology, but they didn't want to run the business side. They were actually happy to let me take over that part. In just 3 years, Orion became something new. I renamed it Bellrest Capital. It grew fast and strong. Today, Bellrest is one of the top private investment firms in South America. Nobody knew I was behind it. I used hidden companies and secret trusts to cover my name. I joined meetings by video calls, using software to change my voice. While Natalie and Liam posted pictures of their luxury vacations and fancy cars, I worked quietly and built a business empire. Bellrest now owns part of more than 50 companies. Some of them have even beaten my family's company in big real estate deals. But I never changed my lifestyle. I still live in my small 3-bedroom apartment in George Washington's Mount Vernon. I still drive the same old BMW I had in college. I don't need to show off to feel successful. Just then, The waiter brought another round of drinks and broke my thoughts. My mother used the moment to bring up something she often talked about: why I was still single. "Ruth," she said, "if you just tried a little harder, maybe fixed your hair or wore something nicer, not from the clearance rack, you might actually meet someone." Natalie joined in. "My husband is a partner at Roger S. Goldman," she said proudly. "We're hosting a big gala next month for the Children's Trust. Tickets are $4,000 each." She gave me a fake smile. "But don't worry, Ruth. We won't make you feel out of place." Liam laughed. I thought about the invitations waiting on my desk back home. They were addressed to the CEO of Bellrest. They were begging me to be there. And tomorrow, they'd finally learn who I really am. "I'm not unhappy," I said calmly as I cut into my steak. "Success doesn't look the same for everyone." My father scoffed and shook his head. "That's the kind of thing people say when they've failed. It helps them feel better." Natalie's face lit up suddenly. "Oh, remember that tiny tech company you used to work for?" she said with excitement. "Guess who bought them? Bellrest Capital." Liam laughed and leaned back in his chair. "If only you had stayed at that company, Ruth. You could have finally been part of something big." I picked up my napkin and gently dabbed my mouth, hiding a small smile. "Yes," I said softly. "Imagine that." My mother jumped in with her usual sharp words. "The CEO of Bellrest is brilliant," she said. "Ruthless, smart, and private. That's the kind of person who becomes truly successful. Not someone like you, Ruth." I raised my glass with a calm smile. "Here's to surprises," I said. Natalie lifted her chin like she was announcing something very important. "The CEO of Bellrest will be at the contract signing tomorrow. They're very careful about who they work with. Clearly, they know the Douglas name means something." "Clearly," I said under my breath, glancing down at my phone beneath the table. A message had just come in from my company's chief financial officer. It was about another big tech deal we were working on in Las Vegas. If it went through, it would shake up the entire industry. It was a deal so big that Natalie wouldn't even know where to start. "Put that away," my mother snapped, noticing my phone. "It's not like anything important is happening on that screen. Show some manners, Ruth." If she only knew I was finalizing a business deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars, she might have stayed quiet. But I just nodded politely and slipped my phone back into my purse. Let them think whatever they want. It didn't matter. Not for long. Dinner went on like it always did. Liam bragged about his growing real estate business. Natalie talked nonstop about her upcoming gala and how many rich guests would be attending. My parents looked at them like they could do no wrong. And me? I stayed quiet, the usual Walmart. The family disappointment. The one they always underestimated. But I didn't mind. Tomorrow would speak louder than anything I could say tonight. The meeting was set for 9 a.m. at Douglas Properties' downtown office. Natalie had been working hard for almost a year to land this deal with Bellrest, never realizing that the CEO she was chasing was her own sister. The same sister she ignored and talked down to. As we got up to leave, Natalie gave me one last dig. She smiled and said, "Don't worry, Ruth. Maybe someday you'll get to stay at one of my fancy resorts. I'll even let you use the family discount." I smiled back. "Maybe," I said. I smiled to myself, thinking of my home on the cliffs in Pfeiffer. A beautiful mansion with ocean views. I bought it in full, no mortgage, no rent. But I didn't brag about it. "That's very kind of you, Natalie," I said with a soft smile. Liam pulled out his black gold card American Express card and tossed it on the table to pay for dinner. "Next round of drinks will be at my new penthouse," he said, smirking. "But be warned, it might make some of us feel underdressed." I picked up my old tote bag and stood up from the table. "Good luck tomorrow," I said smoothly. "I hope everything goes just the way you planned." Natalie raised an eyebrow and gave me a crooked smile. "Some of us can handle real business," she said. "Just don't let your little office job make you late." I walked past their shiny, expensive cars, Natalie's fancy silver Mercedes, Liam's custom black BMW, and headed to my parking spot. My old BMW waited for me, the same one I had driven for years. But tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, I'd arrive in my Rolls-Royce Phantom, Tomorrow, they would finally see the truth. That night, I returned to my quiet apartment. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine. I sat down at my secure workstation and closed another deal. One more win for Bellrest Capital. I didn't need to shout about my success. Real power doesn't try to be seen. It builds slowly, quietly, until no one can ignore it anymore. What happens when the so-called black sheep walks into the boardroom as the boss? That's the moment everything changes. The next morning, I didn't reach for my usual discount clothes. Instead, I chose a navy blue cashmere suit, tailored just for me in Hong Kong. It cost more than Natalie's luxury car. My assistant, Randy, had already confirmed every meeting, every name, every detail. Today wasn't just another business deal. Today was history in the making. At 8:52 a.m., I stepped through the revolving doors of Douglas Properties' downtown office. The lobby was filled with people, all busy, all sure of themselves, until they saw me. Everything went quiet. Gone was the woman in old heels and a worn-out bag. Now I stood tall in 6-inch Louboutins, a silk blouse, and confidence that filled the room. Randy walked behind me, holding a Montblanc briefcase worth more than Liam's entire apartment. The front desk guard stared for a second, unsure. "Miss Kearney," he said slowly, "I don't see you on the visitor list." "Check again," I said calmly. "Under Bellrest Capital." He frowned, then looked back at the screen. His eyes went wide. "Of course, Miss Kearney. You're on the VIP list. Right this way." He led me to the executive elevator. People in the lobby turned to look. The sound of my heels echoed across the marble floor like a clock ticking toward a big reveal. In the elevator, it was just me, Randy, and 8 years of quiet hard work. Through the glass boardroom walls above, they were waiting. They had no idea what was coming. I saw them as soon as I entered the hallway. Natalie was walking back and forth, clearly nervous. She was wearing a fake designer suit, which made me smile. Funny, because my company now owned the designer's entire brand. Liam stood nearby, pulling at his tie the same way he always did when he was stressed. At the end of the table sat our parents. They looked excited, proud, and completely unaware of what was coming. "They're expecting Bellrest CEO at 9 a.m. sharp," Randy said, checking his watch. "Are you ready?" I smiled. I've been ready for 8 years. At exactly 9 o'clock, Randy opened the boardroom door. The room went silent. For pairs of eyes turned to look at me. At first, their faces showed confusion. Then surprise. Then total shock. "Ruth," Natalie said, her voice shaking. What are you doing here?" My father's face tightened. "We're about to have a very important meeting." "I know," I said, walking calmly to the table. I placed my briefcase down and opened it. "That's why I'm here." My mother frowned and narrowed her eyes. "This isn't the time for jokes or drama." I slid a contract across the glass table. "It's not a joke," I said. "The CEO of Bellrest Capital is already here." The room was dead silent. My mother put her hand to her neck, clutching her pearl necklace, like it could help her understand what she was seeing. Liam looked completely lost, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "What kind of joke is this?" Natalie asked. Her voice cracked. "Where's the real CEO?" I smiled and pulled out a simple business card, sliding it across the table. Thick, cream-colored paper. Clean black print. Ruth Kearney, founder and CEO. Bellrest Capital. My father grabbed the card and read it. His face turned red, almost purple. He looked like he couldn't believe it. "This is impossible," he said. "Bellrest is worth billions. You're just a what?" I asked, still calm. "An underachiever? A failure? The black sheep?" Randy stepped forward and handed out neat packets of documents to everyone at the table. "You'll want your lawyers to look closely at Section 8.2, I added. "It talks about how management must follow very clear rules to keep everything in order." Natalie grabbed her copy, flipping through the pages quickly. Her hands were shaking. This can't be real," she said. "You work in admin. You process invoices." I leaned back in my chair and folded my hands. "Actually, I haven't processed an invoice in over 8 years. I've been running Bellrest Capital since I bought that small AI company I once worked for. It was struggling, so I bought it. Just like I've bought dozens of companies since then. I paused and looked straight at them. And as of last week, I now own the entire East Coast branch of Crestmark Financial. Liam sat down hard in his chair, looking pale and stunned. So much for that fancy penthouse he liked to brag about. I continued explaining the details of the deal. The investment was being made through one of my smaller companies, a part of Bellrest. Finally, my mother found her voice. But your small apartment, your simple clothes, that old car? All part of the plan, I said with a calm smile. Not everyone needs attention. Some of us work in silence and let the results speak for themselves. My father's voice was low and bitter. Why all the secrecy, Ruth? Why not tell us what you were doing? Because you never respected anything you couldn't control, I answered. You would have tried to get involved, change things, take credit for my work. I stood up and smoothed the fabric of my expensive skirt. I looked around the room, completely in control. Then I placed a pen on the table beside the contract. Now then, I said, shall we talk about the terms of Bellrest's $70 million investment in Douglas Properties? It's a lot of money. I suggest we carefully go over what you're agreeing to. Natalie's face had lost all its color. She looked like she was going to be sick. The negotiations, she whispered. I've been negotiating with you this whole time? Yes, I said with a nod. Through people I hired. And I have to say, your first offer was way too high. Thankfully, I already had access to the real numbers. The next hour was difficult for them, but honestly, it felt amazing to me. I went through the Bellrest Capital contract one page at a time, line by line. I paused at key points just long enough to watch their faces go from confused, to shocked, to completely nervous. The truth was simple. This $70 million deal would save Douglas Properties from falling apart. They were deep in debt, and they had been hiding it from each other. The company they were so proud of was slowly falling apart behind their fancy press releases. And I had known the truth for a long time. Of course, I said, flipping to the final page. This deal comes with conditions. One of them is a change in leadership. I looked right at Natalie. You will no longer be the project leader. Her mouth fell open. You can't do that. This is my deal, my project. Actually, I can, I said. And it's my deal. Just like the last 3 you bragged about. Each one was funded by companies owned by Bellrest. Then I turned to Liam, whose fake confidence was fading fast. As for your real estate empire, those risky loans you've been hiding, Bellrest now owns most of that debt, which means you work for me now. My father suddenly stood up, his chair screeching. Now wait just a minute, Ruth. This is outrageous. You can't just walk in here and… I can, I said, cutting him off. My voice was sharp but calm. And I have. Bellrest isn't just some small business. We have investments in over 50 major companies. Your company? It's just a small piece of a much bigger picture. I let them sit with the truth for a moment before finishing. But because you're my family, I said, I'm giving you a choice. You can sign the agreement and accept the changes, or you can refuse and watch everything fall apart when we call in the debts you owe. Silence filled the room. No one spoke. No one even moved. Natalie's shoulders began to shake. She was crying but trying to hide it. My mother, who had always been so proud and proper, looked small and tired in her seat. She was slouched, defeated. Liam stared at the documents in front of him like they were glowing red hot. He didn't even blink. Finally, my father picked up the pen. His hand trembled. Years of pride and control were breaking apart right in front of me. One by one, they all signed. Randy quietly collected the signed contracts as I stood. I have another meeting across town, I said, slipping on my coat. You can let yourselves out. My real office makes this place look like a storage closet. I turned toward the door, but paused with my hand on the handle. Oh, and Natalie, about that charity gala you're hosting next month, I said casually. She blinked. What about it? Don't worry about sending me an invitation, I replied with a soft smile. I bought the venue last year. She stared at me in shock. Actually, I own most of the buildings where your events are held. Funny how that works. The car ride back to Belrust's true headquarters gave me a quiet moment to think. Their shocked faces had been satisfying, yes, but this wasn't really about revenge. It was about finally being free. Free to stop pretending. Free to stop hiding. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Why didn't you ever tell us? I looked out the window at the Pittsburgh skyline. I thought about every dinner where they made fun of my old car. Every comment about how I was wasting my potential. Every moment they looked right through me like I didn't matter. Because you never would have believed me, I thought. You only respect power when it's placed directly in front of you. In the months that followed, everything began to shift. Natalie was quietly moved into a different position, what they called a strategic advisor. A nice way of saying she had been pushed aside. The projects she used to brag about were now officially credited to the real teams at Belrust. Liam's real estate company didn't stay independent. Belrust folded it into its restructuring division. His debts were cleared, but so was his freedom. As for my parents, they acted like none of it was a surprise. They began rewriting the past, pretending they had always supported me, that they had known I was capable of this all along. But I knew the truth. And now, so did they. They started telling everyone how proud they were. They called me a gifted visionary, their brilliant daughter who had just needed time to find her path. Friends and neighbors heard all about the mysterious billionaire in the family. I let them talk. It didn't cost me anything. I stayed in my small apartment a while longer. It helped me stay grounded. But I finally let go of my old BMW. I donated it to a local women's shelter where it could be useful. As for my real homes, including the private penthouse on the top floor of Belrust Tower, they stayed my quiet escape. No one needed to know where I really lived. The next family dinner didn't take place in a restaurant or someone's house. It was held in my executive suite, 50 stories above the city. The room had tall glass windows from floor to ceiling, showing the skyline in every direction. The walls were lined with modern art, handpicked by top curators. Everything in the space was calm, expensive, and elegant. They looked around in amazement, taking in every detail. I lifted a glass of red wine. Just one bottle cost more than Natalie made in a month. I smiled softly and said, "Real success isn't about showing off. It's about what you build when nobody's watching." No one spoke after that. For the first time, the black sheep had silenced the entire flock. But here's the truth. I still shop at Walmart. I still enjoy simple things. Because real power doesn't need attention. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It knows who it is and stays steady, even when no one else believes in it. If you're still here, reading my story, thank you. Not just for reading, but for really seeing me. For years, I was the one no one expected much from. The one people looked past. The one they called a disappointment, a failure, a misfit. But I've learned something important. You don't have to be loud to be strong. You don't need to be liked to be valuable. If you've ever been judged by your car, your job title, or how well you fit into someone else's version of success, this message is for you. If any of this feels familiar, I invite you to leave a comment and share your story. I truly want to hear it. And if this spoke to you, hit subscribe. Not because of drama or revenge, but for the reminder that sometimes the people who are doubted the most are the ones quietly building something powerful. You don't need to prove your worth to people who refuse to see it. You just have to believe in yourself. And keep building, quietly, steadily, and in your own way.